Hello, everyone, and welcome to our show tonight. I am your host, Sheila Seppi, and I'm the founder of the Conscious Awakening Network. And tonight we have a special co-host. It's Monday, so we have a wonderful co-host all month long, and that's Miss Karen Swain. But before I bring Karen up, what I'd like to do is to thank everybody for joining us here, whether you're in the audience or watching us live. We have recently crossed our 76,000 viewership, so we're extremely excited about that. We're continuing to grow on Can, so that means that Cosmic Conversations and all of the work we're doing with the Galactic Alliance is reaching further. So if you have not already signed up to be on our mailing list, if you would please go to thegalacticalliance.org and sign up, or you can also sign up on the consciousawakeningnetwork.org. But either way, we want you to join us. So I'm extremely excited this month to have Karen Swain. Now, you guys know Karen and love Karen. So she has been co-host with me before. A lot of times Karen will pop on for me when I'm like, Karen, I got to be out of town. Can you help me? Oh, sure. I'll be right there. But what I'd like to do is I'm going to just turn it right over to Karen and I'd love for you to tell people a little bit about yourself, how they can find you, the work that you're doing, and then you can introduce our guest for tonight.
I can introduce the very special guest. Hi, everybody. I'm Karen. Where can you find me? KarenSwain.com, teacher of deliberate creation, show host of Accentuate the Positive, media, expanding consciousness. And I also do groups like Sheila, I call the Inner Sanctum, but I only do them a couple of times a month. Sheila does them a couple of times a week. I don't know where you find the time, love. I just don't know where you find the time. But yeah, this month, it turned into 5 weeks. So I asked a few people that I've had on the show to come and speak to you all, y'all. And interestingly enough, Sheila was in the Inner Sanctum recently. And I don't know if we were talking after the show, but we were talking about the false matrix. And Sheila said, let me tell you about the false matrix. And I said, well, why don't we have you as our first guest in the Cosmic Conversations in the first month of for the first week of where are we? October. So you're it, gal. You're it. You are it. I'm going to read her bio out because this is live streaming, as she says, on, a stack of different platforms. And even though she is the host of Cosmic Conversations, not everybody knows all about Sheila. So just a little bit about Sheila. Sheila is a soul exchange walk-in who agreed to switch places with a soul that already inhabited the body, the natal soul, at the age of 38. She was a mother of 3 children that she changed souls with. And I think that your son also, Sheila, is a walk-in as well, right? All your children, or just one of them?
No, just my son, Dylan.
Just your son, Dylan. Her first soul experience was with the angelic realm, where she was given the name Nawela by her original star family. Her soul is a combination of her angelic, Palladian, Syrian, Arcturian, Lyrian, Mantis, Andromedan, multi-dimensional Christ consciousness lineage. Whew. I think many of us are, actually. I think many of us have played in different realms, different places, and who have when I say many who have volunteered to come to Earth to be a part of the shift, like leaders in the shift. She arrived from her collective with a mission to be a way shower for humanity by helping people to spiritually awaken and evolve. When she leaves this time, she'll return to the 7th Density Collective, the founder of the Galactic Alliance, Conscious Awakening Network, Cosmic Conversations, and the founder of Spirit Way Wellness in Eagle Vale, Colorado. Sheila facilitates healings, groups, events, and gathering the starseed light worker family across the planet. So today, if you got the email, I'm going to read out what was on the email because I thought it was so cool. Over the course of 12,000 years and currently a currently constructed false matrix has shackled society, imprisoning humans with twisted notions of their identity, their latent potentials, and the enigmatic truth encoded in their DNA. So today we're going to delve into this extraordinary narrative that challenges our understanding of existence itself, the false matrix. So I'm excited to hear what you've got to say about it, Sheila. Take it away.
Okay, it's really odd with me being the person doing the talking here tonight. I've never done that on this show. I've been doing the show for 3.5 years, something like that. And I have never talked on the show. So for those of you who don't know, I'm going to give you just a really brief background of how I kind of got to be where I am now. As Karen said, I am a soul exchange walk-in. I walked into the body of a 38-year-old woman with 3 kids. I had tons of diseases that were just running rampant in this body. And over the course of 20 years, I had been diagnosed with like bone cancer, brain tumors, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. I used to walk with a cane. I had erythema nodosum and sarcoidosis. I had the beginning stages of RA and I couldn't hardly open and close my hands. And that's when they put me on Celebrex. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven because that steroid really gave me some mobility back. And my kids spent most of their young years having a mom that played with them from the couch or was in bed all the time. So what happened to me, as you heard, I was a very sick person and I was in a very dysfunctional marriage. I had never read a metaphysical book. I knew nothing about spirituality. As far as I was concerned, religion was spirituality. And I was in this very little tight box and I kind of liked it there. I didn't know the difference. I didn't know there was anything besides that box. But I went to bed with this particular mindset. And what happened the next morning, it felt as if somebody reached down, grabbed me by the hair of the head, pulled me bolt right up in bed. And it was like lightning ran through my body. And then I was in white space. Now, for those of you who follow any NDEs, you know that they all talk about going into the white space. I don't know if I actually died. I don't necessarily have memories of the other side. I just remember being in this white space, being out of pain, very comfortable, feeling this amazing unconditional love surrounding me. And the next thing I knew, my peripheral vision was coming in and then my frontal vision. And as I sat there in the bed and was looking around, of course, the first thing is like, what am I doing sitting up in bed? But the next thing was everything in the room was the same, but everything was totally different. And it was as if when I looked around the room, articles of clothing would tell me where they were worn last. And the photographs on the wall, you know, in the Harry Potter movies, how the photos are alive. Well, that it wasn't like that, but it was kind of like that as far as the imagery. And I knew what happened before, I knew what happened after. And you would think, oh, yeah, of course you do, because you took the photos. But you have to remember at that time, I didn't know I was a walk-in. And so everything was just kind of like amazing to me. When I got out of the bed and I walked by a mirror for the first time and I looked in there, I just stopped and I was just staring because it was as if I was looking out of somebody else's eyes. And that's a pretty freaky feeling. And honestly, the sensation, the soul exchange, how it happened is as visceral today as it was when it occurred. I remember everything. I can remember the sensations with perfect clarity. But the other thing that started happening is all of a sudden I had past life memories that was flooding my body. Why? Well, first off, they weren't my past lives. They were the body's past lives, but the energy of the soul, because the way it came in and shifted, everything had started imprinting and bringing those past lives up. And so I didn't even believe in past lives. So that was the first thing. It's like, what the heck? Then all of a sudden, I started remembering healing modalities that I had never studied, and spiritual rituals like ceremonies that I never even had an interest in. Then I also started remembering some universal truths that's taken me some 23 years to be able to unravel, even in my mind, because I had no language for what was happening to me. I just thought I was having a psychotic break because of the illness and the marriage and, still trying to work and have a family, the whole 9 yards. I thought I was having a psychotic break. And so as I would walk throughout the house that first few hours, I would just pick things up and hold them and look at them. And I was just mesmerized by everything. I remember the first time I felt the sun shining on my face, first time I opened up the refrigerator and all the aromas came wafting out. It was just like, whoa, and so everybody thought, it was like as if I was on a drug, honestly, because I was so elevated and my senses were so awakened. I didn't know at the time that I was clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient. So when I saw people walking around, first off, I didn't even know what those words meant. But when I saw people walking around the house, it's like, okay, you've really lost it. And when people started talking to me that weren't there, I knew I was crazy. And so within 3 months, I had left that marriage. And within another 3 months, I had found my first spiritual teacher because I had accepted a job in another state, was holding the phone directory. We didn't have Google then. And I was holding the phone directory, flipping through the pages just to kind of see what kind of services were there for kids, because I had 3 young kids, 3, 6, and 12. And so I needed to know kind of, what was in that area. But I saw this ad for a spiritual counselor, and it was almost like a light kind of shone on it, or it just popped off of the page. And immediately I called, and I knew it would be after hours, but I called and left a message and said, hey, I really need to come in and talk to you. I think I'm going crazy. And so after a session or two with this lady, come to find out she was a Hopi, of Hopi lineage. She had women's circles. And she told me, she goes, I've been a psychologist for 30 years, and you do not show any of the signs of having a psychotic break. As a matter of fact, you're very lucid. And she went down through this list and was checking things off. And she goes, what I think is that you might be a walk-in. Well, I never heard of that, but I was ticked because I wanted the blue pill. I didn't want to see people. I didn't want to hear things. I didn't want to know stuff that I didn't believe in. I just wanted my life to go back to the way it was. I felt like I was finally getting things under control, but all of a sudden, all this other stuff was around me and driving me bonkers. And so when she told me that, I left. But by the time I got down to the car, it's really started sinking in, walk in, walk in, walk in. So I made my appointment and I started studying with her. And it was during that first meeting or two that I was in this circle with these other women that we started studying shamanism. And we were studying how to shamanically travel to the lower world, to the upper world. And that was just like, man, it was natural for me. I would go down and say, oh, yeah, I saw this. And they were this tall and they smelled like this. And I felt like this. And they told me this. And everybody's like, have you done this before? And I'm like, never. So anyway, I had this gift, but it was in the underworld that I actually met my guides and had the opportunity to sit and talk with them. Now, we know that we're actually talking about the astral realm when we talk about these various realms that you can shamanically travel into, excuse me. And so I started studying with my guides, and they started revealing more and more and more information to me. And between my teacher, my circle, and learning how to work with my guides, then I was able to start integrating into the body. But then the cellular memories started popping up and all the genetic lineage clearing that had to happen, and then all the behavioral patterns. And so for a period of 7 to 8, 10 years, I was just like hammering, working on all of this stuff. Well, in the meantime, I had remarried, moved to Colorado, and it was there that I opened up my business, Spirit Way Wellness. And because it was a new business, I was afforded the luxury of having lots of time on my hands. And so I just journeyed all of the time. And I worked with my guides. And it was there that they began to teach me about my soul, because I started asking them questions like, did I kick the soul out of the body? What happened to the soul? Am I a body thief, a body snatcher? And they're like, no. And they began to explain to me the ascension of the soul process. And they gave me so much information that, I just couldn't understand it. And it all got filed away. And then they started, every time I would get to a point that I felt like, okay, I think I've got my bearings, they would start telling me to go bigger and go bigger and go bigger. And it was through that going bigger process that led me to all of the various businesses that I have. And it was during one time that they told me to, they wanted me to write the book, Walk-ins, Cosmology of the Soul. And after I did that, then I was told to have the first walk-in conference, which I did with Portal to Ascension and Neil and Alan. Then I started the Galactic Alliance. And the next thing they told me was to start CAN. And so that's the Conscious Awakening Network. But during all of this time, they've still continued to give me teachings, because after I started studying about the soul and the various layers of the soul and how things came into being, my guides they break things down for me very simplistically so that I can easily understand them. But more so, I can share those with other people who don't have the technical knowledge that can understand it also. And one of the things that they began to explain to me that was in the beginning of all things, when Source desired to know itself, one of the first things that happened was that, that duality, that second movement of the yin, the yang, the light, the dark. And when duality began to come into being, that there were souls that chose whether they were going to play in the light or whether they were going to play in the dark. And the dark at that time is just another aspect of Source. And so the problem was, as these beings continued to play in that darkness, they got sucked in deeper and deeper and deeper. And as they get sucked in deeper and deeper, they began to lose their co-creative powers. Okay. Now, the people that chose, or the souls that chose to play in the light, they began to incarnate on other planets. And on planet Earth, and I should say, now remember, this is what my guides have told me. So if you have received different information from your guides, it just means that we're coming at things just from a different perspective. Okay. Doesn't mean that I'm right and you're wrong, or you're right and I'm wrong. It's just a different perspective. But the way they explained it to me was that everything in this universe is of a 5D nature, period, end of story. Everything that is of form is of a 5D nature. As you begin to move into a sixth density, not dimension, but as you begin to move into a sixth density, you have that opportunity that you can be in the physicality or you can be in the soul realm. But that is the absolute last density where you will take form. And so a lot of beings still choose to be in form. If you move into the seventh density, that's the place of pure consciousness. And at the lower realms, it's just you're the individual energy within this space. But what happens is more of your multidimensional aspects begin to come together. You will begin to, after that begins to occur, then other beings of like mind and of like vibration will begin to come together to create a larger being. Okay. So the state that this planet was in was 5D, and it had some 6D and 5D beings that were residing upon it. Okay. So what happened was there, remember now we've got these beings that's in the darkness, and they've lost their co-creative ability. They began to look not just to Earth, but to other planets as well that they have done this to. But they came here and they looked at the beings that was on the planet, and there were some reptilian beings, there were Lyran beings, there were the plain earthling beings, there were, those that were indigenous to the planet, like the Sasquatches and, just different life forms that were here. And what they tried to do was to begin to convince these beings that they were separate, that they were divided from source. Because if they could convince us that we were separate, they could then move in and provide an alternative scenario. Because of that, what began to happen is they began to visit the planet more and more, and they began to take the beings and they started interjecting their own DNA, trying to override the DNA sequence of what the beings on the planet originally were. What happened then, the angelic beings, some of the extraterrestrial beings, such as the Palladians, the Arcturians, the Andromedans, it's like, you cannot override a population's free will. You cannot do that. And so if you're putting your DNA in there, we're putting our DNA in there also. And so begrudgingly, it's like, okay, whatever. That's how we began to get those 22 different experiments that are being run on the human population. Then the next thing that happened is they're like, okay, so they've got this DNA, but they've got our DNA. Maybe if we can start convincing them that they are separate from source, that they have fear, they will begin to turn more to us, and we can more easily manipulate them to get them to create the reality that we want. Because all they really wanted was to be able to co-create again, but they did it through manipulation instead of coming to the light. And so from that point, they began to beam in. Okay, let me back up. So within our planet, what was holding our 5D frequency and still holds the 5D frequency is the crystalline grid. Now, when I incarnated into this body, we were in, and I come from a collective, but we were in the Andromedan system when we heard, felt, experienced this resonance, this call from Gaia to come and to assist. And we did. But we began to work in the crystalline grid, and we joined with other beings. Remember, I said when you're in seventh density, you began to form a much larger being by consolidating consciousnesses. So together, we were all working on the crystalline grid. Why? Because in order to create the ability for these other beings to control humanity, they had to have some type of a mechanism to beam in, to utilize the crystalline grid, which is also connected with the ley lines that run through the earth. And they had to be able to infuse this crystalline grid with energy using its innate ability to be able to amplify, because it's crystal, to be able to amplify their own desires. And so what happened is they began to literally beam in the frequencies, the lower vibrations of fear, of hate, of war, of disease, etc. Now, many times we've had people here on Cosmic Conversations that have talked about the consciousness chart and where your vibration lies. And we all know that everything is just vibration. So if they're beaming in an extremely low vibration and it hits the crystalline grid and it's amplified, what's next to the crystalline grid? The collective consciousness. Okay, so the collective consciousness being right under the crystalline grid was supposed to be infused in with all the love, light, 5D, happiness, harmony energy, but it was getting now infused also with these lower vibrations. So within the collective consciousness, now you had a fear base. All right. We have never been separate. We're never separate from source. We are an individuation of that source. So regardless of what planet that we're on, we're always connected. We're always connected to the energy of that planet, the energy of our planet. We're connected into the crystalline grid within planet and the ley lines, which are crystalline ley lines. They're crystalline in nature as well. So the crystalline grid is above. The ley lines are within the earth. And as this energy is being beamed down, we're stuck right in the middle. Okay. And so what used to ground us now was sending up vibrations of fear energy, was sending up vibrations of hate, of disease, of worry. And the human was being infiltrated with all of this energy. Now, in order to get this energy to the planet, they were beaming in what they told me, and I was astounded to know there even was such a word. They said there was a physioelectric energy source that was coming into the planet, hitting and compressing against the crystalline grid, which was creating underneath the collective consciousness another ring, another layer, which we might call the false matrix. And the false matrix is what holds all of the deception, all of that lower vibrational energy, which is not natural to our state. But they said this was being beamed in. I know this was, well, all of this could sound outrageous, but it was coming from Saturn, hitting the moon, and then beaming into the planet. That no longer is occurring. However, that's been happening for the last 12,000 years. Humanity has been on this planet for the last 12,000 years. All right. We are in the fourth world, according to the Hopi. There have been 3 other worlds, and we're getting ready to move into the 5th. So within this 4th world structure, the beings on this planet were all subjected to this ray, if you will, this physioelectricity that was coming in, hitting the crystalline grid, infiltrating our bodies. So now our DNA carries that. Okay. The beaming in has stopped. And they told me that it was somewhere maybe around the 80s, like, around the concordance. That's actually when my collective came in, was in the late 80s. And that's when we started working on the grid. And now I understand that more, because there was a repair work that has to take place. When the crystalline grid connects into the ley lines of the earth, it is supposed to create this beautiful, seamless, harmonic boundary for us to work and to live in. But because of all of the other energy that was being beamed in, there are places along the ley lines of the planet that are now cracked. All right. And there are people here on the planet right now whose mission is to send energy into the grid system of the earth. There are other people who are sending energy up to the grid system that surrounds our planet. But because humanity now carries, and these people, and it was reptilians, but these reptilians that did all of this, honestly, were genius. Because now, even though they're not beaming that in, we carry that deception within our DNA. But guess what? We're starting to wake up. We're breaking through that belief system, and we are remembering who we truly are as a soul species. We remember now that we are part of the God source. We remember that individuated source having an experience on this planet, and it's impossible for us. And we as a collective are in the process of moving through, breaking through, and going back in to our organic state of a 5D nature. So that was one of the teachings they gave me that I wanted to share with you guys. And it's really been amazing to me, because as this information came in, I get a lot of information, and I have a lot of people on the show, but I've never really had anybody talking about the matrix the way that they talked about, until I found a couple people actually on YouTube that were talking about it. And I'm like, so they're validating this, even now at this state when a lot of new information comes in, I'm kind of like, is this real? Am I making it up? And we all unpack this information differently. We all get downloads all the time, but how we unpack it, how we're able to incorporate it into our lives is individual for each person. And mine is kind of sitting back, being the skeptic, like, did I see a movie about this? Oh, and I have to share one thing. Did I see a movie about this? Or, is this something I've read? Because I always question. I don't take anything for granted, even with my guides. And those of you who have worked with me know a lot of times, even in readings, I'll be like, what? No, what? And I'll argue with my guides even now. I just don't accept anything just on face value. I can't. It's just not in my nature, I guess. But the thing I wanted to share with you is I was doing some work. Gosh, her name just escaped me. She has all of the different meetings for star seeds, and she used to be in all the secret society programs, but she's broken out. Help me, somebody. Anyway, I was having
not Kathy. Kathy, no.
We had her on here, and the whole time we were having technical difficulties.
Not Mary.
No, I'll think of it or not. But anyway, so I was doing a past life regression with her, and she said, okay, let's go to the time when you, prior to incarnating into this body, when you were still in your collective and you're in the Andromedan system. And so I was watching everything, and immediately I came into this scene where there was this huge craft, and it had these lights going like all the way around. And all of a sudden it started sending this, it was a pulsation, but kind of like it could grab something. And what it was grabbing was this, it looked like this pixelated worm, if you will. And it was black and it was dark, and it had all of these they were like little triangle, almost like scales that it was made up of. And they sent this pulsation like right over top of us, and it attached. And as it pulsed, this thing got smaller and smaller and smaller. And she's like, okay, what was that? And in the regression, I said, Misha Johnston, that's who it was. And in this regression, I said, this was AI technology getting ready to infiltrate the Andromedan system. And we had been sent out we were in an observing, scouting out kind of thing, but we still were not informed. We were just kind of drifting through there also, but this craft was informed, so it could actually attach itself. And it was at the very, very far reaches of the Andromedan system and had not actually come in yet, and it was taken out. Well, I came home, or when my husband got home, I told him about it. And I'm like, man, that was so weird. And I explained everything. 2 nights later, we're sitting down. I'm just looking through the TV. It's like, I need some brain candy. I've been working too much. I want something that I can just like zone out on. And there was a movie called Moonfall. And I'm like, it looks pretty interesting. So we sat down and started watching it. And within the first few minutes of that movie, this thing in outer space, which was AI worm, came through. And I'm like, oh, so I can't believe it. And so spirit always seems to validate things for me. just like with the false matrix, and allowing me to connect with two other people who were talking about it the same way that I was. And so I honestly, I have to live on my guides. I try to let them, tell me where I need to go. People say, I don't know how you get as much done as you do. I don't do it. I just sort of step aside. My guides work through me. I used to laugh and say I'm the laziest person you'll ever meet because I don't do anything. They just, they drop in and take care of everything for me. And it's just, from that state of allowance. But this false matrixing, I'm so excited because we're waking up. We're all waking up as spiritual beings. And when we do, and when we remember, and when we reach that mass consciousness, guess what? All of that false matrixing goes away. And we're back into the organic state of 5D from which we started. So that's my story.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I will ask you, have you shared that like publicly like this before? Have you shared like this?
Not publicly. I mean, I've talked with, some of my students in the soul reconnection, or some of my individual students as I've, talked with them, but I've never shared that. And I feel a little safer now because there's other people talking about it. When you go through a total identity crisis of not knowing who you are or how you fit in the world, and then you kind of like, okay, now I'm comfortable. I know I'm a walk-in. I don't mind talking about a walk-in, but I don't know if I want to talk about the false matrix. But other people are talking about it, so it's like, okay, I can talk about it now.
But you know what? I'm just there's a couple of like wows. Actually, James has a question. We'll get to you, James. Shirley, I agree. Amazing. Thanks, James. Wow. A few comments here. But as I hear it, as I, like the genius of creating it, I've often said this, it's like somebody had to invent or create the horror, show at the fun park. Think of Earth as a fun park, and then you can go and get scared to death. It's like someone had to create this opportunity to feel separate to source. Like the geniusness behind the creation of the false matrix, if you want to call it.
And the other thing that it was also trying to do is because the reptilians that were here, it was also trying to trap them here and to keep them, even though it was other reptilians and other species that actually created this false matrix. The impression that I got from my guides is they thought they could keep everything contained here. But then one of the things that happened is when people, dropped their physical robes and their souls, they had been told, like, you have to reincarnate, you have to come back, you can't ascend, you're stuck here on this planet. And when we believe, whatever our belief system is, when we drop our robes and move out of our physical suits, that's what we're going to experience. And so there was so many lies and deceptions that nobody knew what was, true or not true. And then there's been lots of different interventions, along the way. But that's how that false matrixing, according to my guides, originally came into being.
Yeah.
The other thing that they're saying is now, it's interesting, now that this beam is not coming into the planet any longer, now that people are starting to wake up, what's happening to the rings around Saturn? They're starting to dissipate. Now, is there a correlation? Maybe, maybe not, but I think there might be.
Yeah, absolutely. I've chatted to my guides about this too extensively, because I kept asking the question, how can you squeeze infinite intelligence, infinite creative potential into a consciousness that believes it's separate to that? How does that work? How does that work? And they said that it is on the DNA. We had Don in the Inner Sanctum, Don Hudnall. I don't know if he's online. I don't think he's online tonight, talking more about his experiences. God, Don blows me away. And he was talking about incarnating into this world and going through different levels and layers. And he said each level and layer that he went through, a part of his soul essence, I don't know what word he used, sort of was taken from him and stored in that level. And then he'd go into another and store, and then he became thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner until he was like this sort of thin connection to source, which gave him that human experience of feeling separate. Yeah. So
Right.
he remembers experiencing different parts of him being stored. And I guess that as we awaken, we just remember, regain,
Right.
reconnect to those parts of us. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, see, one of the things too is for those of you that have had sessions with me, you know that I have a very strong Arcturian healing team that I work with. And I've been working with this team probably for 2 years. And I've always been amazed, and I would take notes so that I could share with the person what I was witnessing occurring on their physical bodies. Then one day, the Arcturians were working, and they just sort of stepped back. And I had angelic presence, and I had an Andromedan presence that entered in. And they said, now we're going to teach you how to work on the ley lines of the body. And I'm like, oh, you mean the meridians? And they're like, no, the ley lines. I'm like, no, we call, me smarty. No, we call those meridians. And they're like, no, we're talking about the ley lines. And they began to show me and to talk to me with client after client after client, how what the Native Americans call the web of life, where it says that we are all connected. Well, we are, but we're connected through these ley lines. And these ley lines start for us at the earth, and they go up about 6 feet above our head and about 6 feet out. And they're in various layers. And they showed that there were actually 12 bodies. And they said the first body, of course, is our etheric body. Then they said the emotional mental body. And I said, oh, you mean the emotional and mental body? And they're like, no, we have an electromagnetic field that connects all of our bodies together. And because of the energetic shifts and because of the physical shifts of people, that first electromagnetic shield is no longer there. And it is now an emotional mental body. Okay, so that's kind of cool. That means that we're absorbing more of our own innate self because we actually operate outside of our bodies. So we have the etheric, we have the emotional mental, then they said the astral. And I said, okay. Then I started arguing because they said, now we have the matrix field. And I'm like, what do you mean? Ooh, matrix? What do you mean matrix? And it's like, no. The matrix field has the heart, the throat, it has the third eye area and the crown. From here up, this is our matrix field because we emanate this pulsation that goes out. And I said, well, then shouldn't that matrix be closer to the body? Shouldn't that be next to the etheric? And it's like, no, because it holds that space within the astral realm. Because of how the false matrixing and everything is breaking down, the astral, which used to be up and around the planet, now is part of this planetary field. And that's why more and more people are seeing disincarnate spirits. More and more people are seeing fairies. They're seeing unicorns. They're seeing dragons. It's because our planet is now part of that astral area. But then they said we also have, after that, we have our spiritual body. Then we have the celestial body, then the crystalline body and a crystalline shield. And I said, but isn't the celestial body the last body? And it's like, no, it's the crystalline body because that's what receives all of the signaling that comes in from the various realms that feeds and penetrates all of our various bodies. And so as they began to tell me that, that was about the time they also started sharing with me more about the false matrixing. And they say that because of these 12 bodies, each one of them is associated with a dimension, which of course there's really no dimensions and there's really no densities. It's just, octaves or energetic strands of information. But as humans, we have to be able, to classify stuff. So we call them dimensions and densities. But they said that we're already connected to that. But because of the false matrixing, we have forgotten. And the reality of it is all we have to do is drop back into ourselves because we're already fully connected to 12D and beyond. And so that was, that was super, super interesting. And being able to, work with this, they also have shown me how throughout different lifetimes we come in and we carry soul woundings that allow us on this planet now to be able to try to heal, because as we set up our birth plan, if you will, we will create for ourselves scenarios to experience pain, to experience lack, to experience joy, to experience love, to experience all these different things. But the majority of the time, it's because we have these soul wounds and they get trapped in these fields. And so in these sessions, we just kind of reach in and pull that out, and they'll pull a thread out and say, well, this is from such and so lifetime. This is what happened. And this is the wound. And this is how it's reflected in your life. And so I always tell people, don't tell me a thing about yourself, because the guides already know. Let me tell you what they need you to hear. And then without fail, everybody's like, OMG, that was right on. I can't believe you knew that. And I'm like, it's those guys, if I just listen to them, but they wanted me to know that information and to share it with people. And so now I teach it. I think I've got about 10 or 12 teachers now that are also sharing this kind of information out there. And the false matrixing is a big part of it, because people were breaking through. We're making a difference. We are changing that genetic DNA that we all carry and remembering who we truly are, redefining who we are, and dropping back into those essences of who we truly are, which is source individuations. I used to say fractalizations, and they said nothing's broken. There are no fractals. It's an individuation. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Amazing. There's big comments here. Wow, this is amazing. Lisa says, we are amazing. Stacy says, yeah, we are amazing. It's just remembering, one of the guests that are coming in this Intercosmic Conversations this October is Samuel Chong, who is like spreading the message of the Tayuba prophecy, which was a story of a French-Australian guy that was taken by these 9-foot hermaphroditic ETs that live on a category 9 planet. And it's one of the most amazing books. But the thing that the book calls it, that Samuel says, is the river of oblivion. Isn't that an amazing, we are under this river of oblivion. I guess it's the same name for the false matrix, the river of oblivion. Yeah. But time to wake up. Is James, did you want to come on and say what you've written here? Where are you, James?
I've just, as when Sheila would say things, certain things would catch me, like the piezoelectric effect. So I just wanted to sort of tell the room a tiny bit. Squeeze a crystal, you get some juice out of it. That's one way to think of it. That's real simple. This conversation is just knocking my socks off, and I think most of the room's socks off. This is amazing. And then I Googled up the rings of Saturn, and Soul talked about, she seems to be in agreement with that. And also just your sort of thumbnail sketch of your bio. I recently had a soul retrieval, almost done very ad hoc with a lot of care. And about 60% of my soul didn't make the walk-in. So the only reason I bring that up is I'm now fully brought in and I'm still integrating, because it's only a few days ago, but I sat in this very room, kind of came up, looked around, and it was what you talked about, looking in the mirror.
Yeah.
Who's that? And I looked at my fish tank and went, well, that's pretty. I haven't seen that before. I like my lamp. And I'm not joking at all.
I know.
Isn't
it cool?
My orchids, or not my orchids. Look at the orchids. Yeah. They're pretty. I really like those. But I had never seen them before. I've lived here 13 years. All because this very nice woman, who everyone here knows, but I'm not going to say anything because I don't feel like it's my place to out them. When you walk in, I sort of like I walked in again. And so everything you said at the beginning, Sheila, was just so helpful to me, because it was a walkthrough of what I just did last Sunday. And it was amazing. And I told the person who'd helped me with this, I mean, just facilitated it completely. I said, I now feel normal since the first time since my accident. I belong here. I know what I'm doing. We are amazing. You know, give me a cup of coffee and I'll take on the world. So thank you so much.
Awesome. That's great, James.
Thanks, James. Sorry, I'm multitasking here. Sola Reese, you had a question before. Do you want to come on and ask your question? Sure, she says.
Yes. Hi, everybody.
There you
Hi,
are.
Sheila. Thank
Hi.
you so much. My God, I had no idea. I had not heard your story before, and I really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, because you've answered a lot of questions for me. Not that I don't think I'm a walk-in. I'm not sure. But one of the things I wanted to ask you is, did any of your experiences before you realized about even the concept of a walk-in, did you go through forgetting people in terms of people you've known in a particular time of your life? I guess that's what's happening to me, is there are certain people that I know belong to a certain part of my life, but I cannot remember who they were. And when people bring up certain activities and events, I don't remember them. I don't even remember being there. So I always wonder, is that just me losing my memory, or is it because of a walk-in situation that these memories didn't transfer over yet or something? Can you see a little bit about that? Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I totally did not even hit on that. But one of the things that happened to me is when I walked in, I knew no one. I knew my children.
Wow.
I mean, I knew the man I was married to, and I took a look and said, oh, out of there 3 months. But, you know, what happened was I had an immediate love for my 3 children and my parents, and I was totally disconnected from everybody else. I did not come out of that phase of my life with one single friend, and I had 0 memories. I was gifted a few memories of the kids, you know, a few things about being pregnant and the births, a couple little birthdays. I could have put all of that in a handbasket. I mean, you know, I may not have had a dozen memories, you know. And so when I went back to Virginia, whereas I originally was from, and I was at a funeral, I had all these people come up to talk to me, and they're like, you don't even know who I am. And after this event, and we were home, my mom sat me down on the couch and she said, we need to have a conversation. And I thought, uh-oh, she must have something bad wrong with her, you know. And she goes, I really need you to go to the doctor. And I'm like, what? You know, I feel fine. What do you mean go to the doctor? And she said, I think you have the beginning phases of Alzheimer's, because you don't know any of these people. These were your best friends in high school. You don't remember your family. You don't remember anything we're talking about. And that's when I had to tell my mom that I was a walk-in. And, you know, the way I explained it to her, I said, well, you remember when I was a very, very sick person? She's like, yeah. And I said, you remember all of a sudden I was just instantaneously healed? She goes, yeah. And I said, and you remember how, you know, all of a sudden I was clairvoyant and clairaudient and clairsentient, and all these things started shifting and changing? She's like, yeah. I said, well, what happened is basically I died and was reincarnated, and this is the new soul that came in. And she goes, do you mean I'm not your mom? And I'm like, no, you are my mom, but to a new and improved version. And that was that. Not another word. She was satisfied with that answer. And then I told my dad the same thing, but right before my book was published, you know, and with him and his, you know, from the way he could connect with it, he goes, that's when Jesus miraculously healed your body and you were given the gifts of the Spirit. And I said, exactly. And so from the way they looked at things, they were able to accept me being a walk-in and not having the memories because of their own belief systems and how something like this could fit in. And I've never argued about that. And I mean, who knows? I mean, yeah, I wrote the book, but
Wow.
I didn't write the manual. So,
So,
who knows?
Did you get a healing, or was the walk-in DNA or vibrations of the walk-in so high that the disease that you might have had in the previous body didn't stick? Or was it a healing, or was it just a completely new vibration, and your DNA, your body, your genetics does not have any remnants of the illness you had before?
Right. One of the things that happened, because I came from a collective and the soul of this body had been Arcturian more. And let me first say, every single person here, you have had lifetime after lifetime on every single planet. You've done every single thing there is to do. Okay. So none of us are different or unique in that way. Some of us remember more than others, or our guides have told us more. Some people may be newer from the source energy. Some people may be incarnated here directly from a planet. Some people may be from a different dimension or a multi-dimensional aspect of themselves, but we all have had many, many, many incarnations. And so when I came in from my collective, I was the totality of all of my multidimensional aspects. So it was easy to drip a little bit of Arcturian in to this body because there was already a framework. And by doing so, the soul did not fry the circuitry of the body. Okay. And immediately that new imprinting, because what happens is we have within our etheric field, especially within our etheric template, we have our divine blueprint and we also have our soul codes. And when the two of those marry, that's what creates us. Okay. And so for me, excuse me, for me, what happened is all of the chakras and all of the soul parts out here had already been shifting out. And when the Arcturian aspect came in, it was so strong when it imprinted and created life. When I came, that peripheral vision came in, that imprinting occurred instantaneously, and that vibration was high, the disease was low, and it totally went away. And that's the same thing like when we're trying to break behavior patterns or whatever. If we have negativity in our life and we're striving to be here, sometimes we can hold it, but then sometimes we drop back down, right? So what has to happen is all of the things of this lower vibrational nature need to dissipate or go away in order for us to be able to hold this high frequency. And that's what happened when the walk-in came in. My soul immediately imprinted and held a much higher frequency than the other soul. And so everything that happened was gone. All the disease was gone because it no longer had anything to do with who I was. I imprinted on the human template, bam, everything shifted.
Wow. So the physical body had no remnant, anything about the physical illness?
No, none whatsoever. When I went back to the doctors, they were astounded and amazed, and they had absolutely no explanation for what happened to me. And they were like, well, it's a miracle. Our medications really worked. And it's like, woo, whatever it takes, but I mean, and at the time I didn't know. For all I knew, it was the Celebrex or it was whatever was being given to me.
Yeah, boy, it makes you wonder, a lot of these miraculous healings, they could be walk-ins, but absolutely not really recognized.
Right.
But thank you so much, Sheila.
Yeah. Or they could be assimilating higher aspects of themselves.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Beautiful. Beautiful. Fascinating. Thank you.
Yeah, you're explaining miraculous healings as Solaris said. Lots of people have had them, like after NDEs or just, I think actually, what's her name? Oh gosh, I've gone blank on her name. She talked about it going into the Vatican and touching a statue of an angel, she had it's like all of a sudden one reality shifts to another. It's like jumping timelines.
Absolutely.
What have we got here? Arnarine. I don't know. Say your name. Do you want to come on?
Yeah.
Thank you. Do you want to ask your
Arnania?
Arnania. Do you want to come
Arnania.
on camera? Do you want to come on camera? I think you're muted. You're muted, honey one. There you go.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I'm so disappointed I got the time wrong and missed the whole talk. Is there a replay?
There will be. Yeah, you can catch it. The easiest way is to go to the galacticalliance.org and it'll be under past speakers, and you can go to YouTube.
Okay, perfect. And then my question is, being a walk-in myself, and from some other walk-in experiences that I've heard, there's still health issues with this body. Mm-hmm. And my team told me that the issues, like there's severe periodontal issues. Mm-hmm. And they told me that they kept those in place because they wanted me to learn about how to heal myself. But coming in, if there's still illness in the body from like the native soul, why is that? Do you know?
Yeah, I can only speak to what happened to me. I have no idea about other people's experience or what their soul plan is. I know, I've talked with you, and I know that you now are holding a lot of energy from your oversoul within your physical body. And so maybe it was, we all choose our experiences. So for whatever reason, that was an experience that you guys decided to hold on to.
Okay, well, sometimes I wish that, there'd be a little more replay on the human aspect of things before we make these.
Yeah, I know. On the other side, it's so easy. And then we get here and it's like, what was I thinking?
I'm going to cure 18,000 years worth of periodontal disease. No problem.
Man, wow. Yeah.
All right. I just wanted to check in and ask that. You look beautiful. Thank you so much for doing the talk.
Thanks, honey.
She does look beautiful. She looks absolutely beautiful. I've got a question.
Yes.
You were talking about how we're moving into the astral plane. I think Tanis Helliwell was talking about that. And so we're shifting in frequency. So we're starting to be able to perceive different realms of realities, like the fairy realm, the elemental realm. And so these mystical creatures that have been hidden to us inside the false matrix will start to become a reality, like the Sasquatch, the fairies, and yada, yada, yada. So a part of the astral realm is also the creation of the hell realms that people experience during NDEs, or, can experience, like their thought realms of, awful things that will happen. So if we're moving into more of those, if we're shifting into those astral realms, what happens to those hell realms that are in that astral matrix?
Well, we have to realize that we're the creator of that. Number one, okay? So there has been mass thought that has created that. It can just as easily be uncreated. And from my understanding with my guides, if a soul experiences that, it's only for a temporary time till they're like, oh, wait a minute, what am I doing? Because when we pass, when we drop our robes and go to the other side, what I remember, it's just like, there's such a lightness. And for the soul, it's just like a blink of the eye that we were here. When we're here and we are in this time-space matrix of the false reality, everything seems to go slow, even though now, as this matrix begins to break down, things seem to be going faster. And at some point, it's almost like time bends in on itself. We meet ourselves and bam, there we are. Okay. But the reality of the realities is everything is already happening just like this anyway. They're all sandwiched in. All time is happening at once. And when we incarnate as a soul, if this is a time, We can incarnate here, 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 here. We can incarnate anywhere, but this is still just the incarnation path. So think of this as all of these slices and all of these things we call layers, etc. And somebody said, well, if that's true, then how can we see stars? Is that just a myth? Is that just something being projected? And it's like, no, think of, a goldfish being inside. The goldfish can see outside of the fish tank, or a beta can see outside of the fish tank. It can see the room. That room is real. That's the 5D. The stars are the 5D. The sun is the 5D. Everything outside of us is 5D. Everything outside the Allen belt is 5D. We are just compressed into this little space that we believe is the here and the now and all that there is. But it's only one tiny little sliver of what's actually happening.
So beings that do exist more dominantly in the 5D matrix, and many of them we have called extraterrestrial, like the Greys or Palladians or, whatever. How are they so in the human matrix, it's harder for us experiencing a human experience to move through the dimensions. Collectively, not for everybody, but collectively. But for them collectively, they can move through the different matrices without a problem. Like they can come into our space. And do you want to explain how they do that?
The way it's been explained to me is because outside of Earth, everything is already 5D. Everything exists within this fabric of time, of which there really is no time. So if I am in the Pleiades and I want to go to Andromeda, I simply think it, therefore I am. Okay? Because there is no space-time. People talk about warp speed. I truly believe warp speed is when they've put thought into action and bam, there they go. They're just zooming away. They're still in a vehicle. But sometimes, as we have heard, there are beings who have organic vehicles that get created out of the Merkaba of their very own bodies, and they travel through time and space in their Merkaba. In all the readings and things that I've done, I've been told, and again, this is just what I've experienced, and it could be semantics, but that there are 22 different universes. And we are only but one part of that, of all of the totality of everything. And I'm sure that'll continue to grow, because as we co-creators, as we begin to understand and we discover, oh my goodness, there's a new planet right here. How did we not see it all this time? Well, was it there, or did we actually create that? That's a big question. Could it have been there all along and we just now are discovering it? Maybe. But if we can see something past it, how could we not see something right in front of our face? So I think being co-creators is how they're able to travel as well, because co-creation is not unique to the human species on this planet.
Yeah, you talk about creating spaceships. Kevin Briggs speaks about that with his experience when he was having astral experiences. One of his galactic guides was taking him out of his body at night and flying him around the universe in his spaceship. And Kevin, with the human consciousness, was a bit scared. He said, can we not go out of the window at night, because he was up high, because he thought he might fall, because he still thinks he's in a human body. But anyway, he was saying to his galactic guide, you can cruise around the cosmos in your spaceship. I'm a bit scared to do it by myself. And the guide said to him, well, why don't you just create your own astral spaceship? Kevin goes, how do I do that? He said, you just think it into existence. Yeah. And so he did. And then he created his astral spaceship. And so he felt more comfortable being in his astral spaceship to cruise around the cosmos in that 5D matrix, as you say. Right. And visit other places, other realms, other planets. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
And, one of the things that I thought was really cool in the teachings that came through with the soul reconnection technique and the ley lines is that our throat chakra is created out to the matrix of time, space, and reality, but the true time, space, and reality. And when we are connected into that, we have instant manifestation. But we also, this area, when it gets cleared, all of this stuff, the things that get stuck there are some of the things that really hold us back from being able to speak our truth. And so when we get all of this stuff cleared and we truly are connected in with that which we already are, then we can instantly manifest anything. And a lot of people are noticing that. You start thinking about something, what happens? It occurs. And so we really have to garner our thoughts, because everything that we think, it's not just for us. It filters up into that collective consciousness, and we're trying to clear that collective consciousness down here. It's also trying to be cleared from above as well. So, we really do need to hold our thoughts close. And just because you think it and don't say it doesn't mean that you're not imprinting, because a thought is also creating energy.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to be an instant or a genius creator or an instant manifester, you really have to clean up your thoughts. Like, you don't want to live inside the 5D realm if you're thinking negative thoughts, because then you're in. So this buffer of time inside this false matrix gives us the beauty or the availability to change our thought so that, we can't manifest instantly inside the third dimension because of this buffer of time. Thought doesn't manifest instantly. And then that gives us the ability to think negative thoughts and not have instant ramifications of that, or think about an elephant and then there's an elephant that turns up in your room. But it's like a practice, so we can practice cleaning up our thoughts. And then when we do, then we can move into a different experience, a different dimension or vibrational experience. Yeah.
Right. And, souls want to come here for that very reason. There's restriction, there's limitation. And I tell people all the time, and you guys have all probably heard me say this, forever is a long time. And you really get bored if you're just sitting around on a cloud drinking cappuccino forever and ever and ever. So imagine somebody comes up and they're like, oh my gosh, I heard about this crazy place you can go and you can get scared and you can experience, pain, and you can have, you can have wine, and, you can have sex. And they're like, well, what is all these things? And they start explaining, and everybody's like, yeah, I want to go. Sure, I want to go and experience some pain, because on the other side, you know what pain is. And you can even experience yourself as the cut on the hand. You know what it's like to heal. You know what it's like to be the cells, but to feel it is very, very different on the other side. I remember when I first came in, I was touching and feeling everything. I was holding it. And I would have been the kid at school when they went on a field trip and they said, don't touch that. I would have been the one that they were smacking their hands, because I touched everything.
Look, you know what, Sheila, I think you have wowed people today, because there's no questions. Is anyone on Zoom? James is going, yeah. They're in awe. They're like, they're thinking about everything. There are no questions. Has anyone else who's on the Zoom call? We've got almost 40 people on Zoom today. Wow. Has anyone got any questions? No questions. You know me, I can ask a million questions. But I shared it all over Facebook, and I shared it all over the place. So I was just looking at where I shared it. No questions. What other questions do I want to ask? Here we go.
Oh.
There's a question.
Arnania.
Hi. So just a variation on what I asked before. What are some, in your experience, because you're so seasoned as a practitioner and also in your personal experience, what are some foundational kind of common theme reasons that, like, as a walk-in, or a higher self download where illnesses will remain? Is it because there's so much clearing to do left over from the cellular memory and imprinting, or?
Yeah, it can be. And it also could be that there's soul wounding that was brought in from another lifetime that actually has not been cleared yet. Okay. And so when you think of the mouth, that's also associated with which ley line? The throat ley line. So I know you've taken the class with me. You could go back and you can look at that chart, and you can go through and look at the throat and see all of the things that you might need to, see if there is a soul wound in those areas, especially as it connects to the time-space matrix and the reality, the true reality. Is there something within that true reality that you are still working to integrate?
Okay. That's good information. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, of course.
I can't wait to see the replay.
Yeah, it's all over the place. It's all over. Oh, here's Jenny. Do you want to come on camera, Jenny? Oh, and Susan, couple of hands up.
Hey, Jenny.
You're going to have to unmute, honey one.
There, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm in the dark, so pardon me. I'm just sitting and chilling out and listening. I love listening to you, Sheila. I told you today I'm your biggest fan, or at least one of them. So I think probably the reason maybe so many people are not asking questions is, to me anyway, my experience has been every sentence is a universe. Every sentence tonight. And I'm pretty good at following stuff. I'm like, whoa, everything. I could go down that rabbit hole with the question, and I'm looking forward to hearing the replays also. But I guess the main thing that stuck out, this whole false matrix thing, recently you had a guest and he was discussing that. And that was my first real introduction to, I always thought when I would hear that phrase, it had to do with our duality experience, our experience here. One of the things that we've come to here on the planet Earth is to have the experience of duality, like you're talking about, just sitting there experiencing nothing. You get to come here and you experience pain and joy, experience dark and light, all the opposites. And what I learned in that, and what made sense to me, was that those two things are different. There's that, independent experience of what people come here to Earth to, one of those things to experience. And then there was this whole thing that I learned about the false matrix, which you expanded on tonight. So my question, and it's kind of two-part, is, so let's say that didn't happen.
What didn't happen?
The false matrix was never in place, and our incarnation or our evolution as a human species, I know we can't know exactly what would have happened, but without that influence, what would our experience here as human beings be then, without that complication? Because I always thought all those things we were experiencing was just like normal, to a greater or lesser degree of our experience here on the earthly plane, if this makes any sense.
It does. And one of the things that I have to say is, a lot of people have this idea that when we move into 5D, everything is love and bliss and unicorns and, but it's not. There's duality there. All of the planets in 5D still have duality. And so coming here is just, it's a different kind of duality, because we have the duality, but then we've got this false matrix sit on top of it. The duality being the good, the bad, the dark, and the light. Okay. But here we have fear. Other planets don't have the fear like we do here. Other planets don't have the illnesses like we do here. But we're told that we can become sick, and therefore we believe it. We're told that bacteria can damage our body, that viruses can kill us, and therefore they do, because that's in our genetics to believe these lies that we have been told for 12,000 years. It's innately inherited within our bodies. And so to come here, the cool thing is we get to get in one of these bodies that has all this false matrixing programming that we're trying to break out of. Okay. Nobody else has done that. Nobody else has had, I mean, duality. Yeah, that's one thing, but breaking through the false matrix, that's the cool thing about this ascension. It's never been done. And we are doing it as a collective species, not as individual souls. We're doing it as a symbiotic unit.
So yeah, I'm just still wondering. I mean, I can't know what that would feel like to be that without the false matrix. I just ponder that. And also, did the false matrix come before our actual DNA was, genetically, before the 24th chromosome and the quantum DNA
came after?
It came after. It would have to have come after.
Right. Yeah, and it was literally, it was first beamed in, and then we absorbed that through the crystalline matrix and through the ley lines within the planet, because we're walking that falseness. And then it became part of the DNA. So what happened to one species, if you think about it, a lot of families have similar traumas. Why? Because of genetic imprinting, and that's passed down. A lot of families have miasms. Uncle Joe had this, my dad had this, therefore I'm going to have it. Not true. It's not true. Right. But it's imprinted in our DNA to believe that. That's the false matrix.
Yeah, and it's perpetuated.
We have absorbed it and become it, but we're breaking out of it now.
So now I think you said that had sort of, it's not there anymore, but it's still in our DNA. So right. that program is not running, but and you've called this in our session, would that be akin to like a shadow echo? Like it's there, or is it more real than that?
Well, it's actually real within our DNA, but it's a shadow, what I would consider a shadow echo within the crystalline grid, which is being cleaned up, and within the ley lines of the planet, which is being healed. And a shadow echo just means that, think of it like etheric scar tissue, but that etheric scar tissue is holding the lessons of a particular situation, so it doesn't have to be experienced again. It would hold the memory of trauma, the healing of trauma, but you could still drop into the trauma.
So it's like when you're sick and you would have surgery, and there's all this scar, the illness is gone, but you have all this scar tissue.
Right.
Let's say. Yeah.
Same thing. That's the way I use the analogy. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that analogy a lot. It works for me. And I could go on, so I'll let someone else ask now. So I got a few questions in there.
Thanks, Jenny. Thanks. Susan, do you want to come on camera to ask a question? Have to unmute. There you go.
Hi. Sheila, I love the work you're doing.
Thank you.
This expansion has been so critical to the community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I have a question about the true reality, but I also want to share some information that I've received.
Ooh.
And you gave me a beautiful clue here when you were talking about the reptilians having lost the ability to co-create. And you said something at that point, and I've been trying to follow through here, but that there was a way that they were cut off, and in part to keep them here. That part, this is new information, but what I understand about those that were trapped here, their genius, and we've seen the genius of creating duality.
Yes.
Their genius actually lies in the technology that is currently, in spite of the matrix and because of the matrix, maintaining control in communications in the medical field, the institutions, through the financial fields, through all of the educational fields, pretty much every system we know, and very specifically technology. So the day-to-day operations, we are being bombarded with the message that wants you to remember the matrix.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Into the matrix. So I think it's something, one, to understand that the matrix has collapsed because of the work of many of us here on this call, consciously or not. Secondly, the day-to-day requirements for us is to make sure we are not connecting in, because any communication, any co-creation with that is enhancing it, is maintaining its presence.
Exactly. You're exactly right. Yeah.
Can you speak to me about this pure reality?
The pure reality is what was in existence prior to the false matrixing, that we are a divine source, individuated unit. And as such, we can travel anywhere that we choose and incarnate in any form that we choose. We can be part of the ethers if we choose. We can be part of a planet. Well, we have to wait till we get to the higher 7D for that, or a star for the 8th D. But, we have lots of choices that are available to us. But when we are under the impression, I'm going to call it, of the false matrix, we don't believe any of that. We drop into that fear because it's part of the DNA structure. And the programming, the false programming, is exactly what you said. It's feeding and making that structure stronger for some population. But as we all know, the ascension has really already begun. People are shifting, people are changing, but there's this division of ways. Okay, there are those who believe in the programming that still drop into the nightly news, that believe everything that they're told from outside sources. And then there are some that's like, I don't think so. There are some that's like, no, we know who we are, and we're here having a human experience. And now we're working to get rid of all this falseness, get rid of all the fear, get rid of all the lies, get rid of all the deception, get rid of all the lack consciousness. And as we do that, we're raising our vibration. But what happens is it's causing a further and further and further division from those people who are still being held intact by the matrix. A lot of people are experiencing this in their families. They're experiencing it in partnerships. They're experiencing it at work. They go places and they're like, my God, I can't even relate to these people. What's going on? And that's what's happening. Their vibration is shifting, and they are no longer in resonance with that lower vibration of the matrix.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thanks, Susan. Do you have another?
I had one quick question. Have you seen with the walk-ins that you've worked with, is ADHD pretty common? Just wondering.
It's not so much that it's common. It does happen, but a lot of times, the ADHD is really misdiagnosed as, because you're looking at frequencies is what's happening. And you can have higher frequencies. I know I have some ADHD. I know a lot of people that have a little ADHD. And I think that's what allows me to be able to hyper focus. Plus, whether you call it a gift or a curse, I don't have any voices in my head. A lot of people talk about the committee or whatever in their head. I don't have that. If I'm not talking or thinking, there's nothing going on. It's just kind of quiet space. But what happens is then that allows, when my collective works through me, to be able to really hyper focus. So I think when we come into a body, we will choose those attributes that we need. And a lot of children who are being diagnosed as autistic, they're choosing to come into that body because I believe that they are bringing about this new human. They haven't fully been able to integrate all those high frequencies, but they're working on it. And they are the forerunners of what is yet to come.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Mary Rodwell calls ADHD always dialed in to higher dimensions.
I like that. I think everybody on this call is probably a little ADHD.
Yeah, I think so.
Rebecca, you've got your hand up. You've been very patient. there. There you go.
Hi, thank you. Sheila, as you were talking, my mind got kind of stuck on these ley lines, and it occurred to me to ask you if there's a relationship, a correlation or a relationship between the ley lines in the earth and ley lines in humans.
Yeah, I think that we're all connected because remember, we ground our energy. And when we ground, we actually drop into that crystalline core of the planet if you're grounding deep enough. And it's in the crystalline core of the planet where all the not soul codes, but all the human template codes for all of life on this planet are found. So when we are going through, we're automatically connected in with those ley lines. When we're in our homes, a lot of times there's ley lines that intersect. When we walk, there's ley lines underneath our feet, and that energy is coming up. But that's, we are connected really to all things, Rebecca. That's a really good point.
Would that have anything to do with what's the word I'm looking for? Resonance. When we go to a particular spot on the planet and we feel a resonance and we're on another spot and there's not particularly any resonance or.
Yeah, there are, excuse me, there are maps, I'm really dry, sorry. There are maps that will show you where the ley lines are of this planet. Now, they say that there are vibrational frequencies that can actually be picked up with certain types of equipment. But what my committee, if you want to call them a committee, but it's my collective, what they have told me is that they have this crystalline energy about them. And when those crystalline energies cross each other, just as regular crystals do, they produce energy together, and energy of crystals amplify. And when those ley lines are crossed, a lot of times they call them power spots. Now, there are smaller ley lines and there are larger ley lines. Some people call where the ley lines intersect at major points, they call those the chakras of the planet. But yeah, I believe that, we have large ley lines, small ley lines, but we are connected. We're connected with everything because you remember, just as much as we're going this way, we're also connected this way.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Thanks, Rebecca. Whoa, Sheila, this conversation and the discussion that we've been having is a perfect segue for the people that are coming up this October. Just perfect. I want to chat a little bit.
Yay.
Just about, because I don't know, because you haven't met some of the people that are coming in here. So
no.
There are people that I've had on the show this year, like we talked about education and creating the false matrix, and we talked about how the new children come in and they're like vibing in a different vibe. Well, this Dr. Edith Ubuntu Chan is somebody that I've invited in. She just rocks. I love this woman. Brandon Thomas introduced me to her from Expanding Reality.
Brandon. Yeah.
And and she talks about luminous education, and her story is amazing because she's in touch with the babies, because she has a couple of babies, I think 8 and 5 now. She never wanted to have children, but they talked to her from spirit and said, we've got this agreement to come in. And the whole story of how they came in and how they explained to her about the millions upon millions upon millions of souls waiting to come to Earth to be a part of the shift in this human consciousness is amazing. And also Samuel Chong, who I mentioned before, and Ross said, who was it? Yeah. So he's fascinating too, because the book, The Thaiba Prophecy, talks about how Earth was created and all the different planets that seeded life here. It's just fascinating. He's the one that the book says, the river of oblivion. And who else? I'm just looking for I'm looking for the oh, here we go, Cosmic Conversations. Edith, Samuel, Elsa Dillon, who is an Australian, so a couple of Aussies. Elsa's up near Byron Bay. She and her children, she's got, God, I think she's got 8 children, are all receiving galactic messages from people all over the cosmos. She is just fascinating. And then the last person I have is a woman that I've just had on the show, Desley, who is a starseed, but she's worked as a naturopath for 30 odd years.
Oh, cool.
And she's sort of, I asked her to come on because she reminds me of Dawn about some of her experiences. Like, they just blew me away, some of the experiences she had as a child, like her ultra sensitivity. So she's operating at that high level of that the starseeds do with the empathic abilities. But she didn't go mad or become, addicted to some pharmaceutical drug or alcohol or, to try and numb her sensitivity. Like, she's a high functioning, I don't know, empath, I suppose, because, as I said to you before, she could feel the vibe of the electricity running through the wires in the house. Like, she said she had a waterbed, and when someone sat on the waterbed with her, she would start to vibrate. The water would start to vibrate. Like, just amazing experience. She's had poltergeist experiences because her house was a portal into other dimensions, and like everyone was coming to say hello. So yeah, this has been a fantastic segue into the conversations that we're going to have for the rest of the month, actually. Yeah. Ross, did you want to say something, honeyone?
Yes,
Hey,
hi.
Ross.
Yes, hi, Sheila. How you doing? Long time
Great.
no hear.
I
Really,
know.
yeah, it's been a long time. I really appreciate you sharing all this information. I decided to say a few things and show my face because I have a question that's something very relevant. So I live, outside of Denver, a great place, Mile High. But when I go to Buena Vista, something strange happens. I can feel this when I stand or I am in front of those big 14ers downtown Buena Vista. I feel this incredible energy. And me just sharing this, I get all goosebumps running through my body right now. And so I think so. I understand maybe what's going on, but this happens in Buena Vista. Once I go across the Poncha Springs, for example, to Salida, I don't feel as much.
Right.
But definitely downtown Buena Vista, and I know it's the same range, but it's a different. Still, it's the Arkansas River and stuff. Still, it's a grounding stuff. So, would you know? And you just live up the road, Leadville. So, do you know anything about the ley lines or the grid lines running through Buena Vista or Salida or to Leadville, maybe even? Do you know anything about that stuff?
I know nothing official about it. What I know on a spiritual level is that all of these 14ers are what's called, the Wapus. And so they hold the energy and the frequency of this place. And so they're very magnificent, energetic beings that are holding this, divine high earth energy. There are a lot of vortexes in these areas. There was a vortex right where we built our house. And I put a medicine wheel down to amplify and balance and all those kinds of things. But there's tons of also with the hot springs, that water coming deep from within the earth carries its own vibrational frequency with all of those minerals. And so you combine that, even if it's not on the surface, but it runs under that entire area and all the way down Mount Princeton, which also is where the 14ers are before you get to Salida. And once you get in Salida, there's a little bit of hot springs, but not much. And I think the combination of the energy of the mountains and the combination of that water is what's creating these powerful vortexes. That's what I feel on a spiritual level. But now I'm really curious. So I'm going to have to get me a map of the ley lines. And if you've got one, let me know.
I don't know, but
we'll figure it out.
Because so I will be driving, going, on 285, and once I see those, those 14ers in the Buena Vista, and I enter Buena Vista, I feel this change, this kind of whoosh come on me with this energy. And I was like, what the heck is this? What's going on here? What just happened? So I was wondering, what really is happening to me or with me that I'm really feeling this energy? And I think so everybody could probably feel that.
Right. And the hot springs combine the fire energy and the water energy because of all that, the volcanic waters coming up and everything. But it's a very unique situation, I think, a very unique place.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Good
Thank
to
you,
see
Sheila,
you.
nice to see you. Yes. And I will recommend everyone who is on this call right now, since I'm Coloradan, come and visit Buena Vista, come and visit, experience those 14ers, Arkansas River.
And the hot springs.
Yes. Cottonwood Hot Springs. And it's, Princeton Hot Springs, among other ones. So, yeah, awesome place.
I'm coming one day.
All right.
Let me know. Then we can chat.
So I'm allowed into your country now. It's a bit of a way for me to come, but thanks, Ross. James actually put a link in the chat here, spiritual ley lines, map and why you may live on one. Oh, interesting. Thanks, James.
And that's unfortunately only North America. I don't know why it's so hard to search for ley lines, but it kind of is. But I will also add just an anecdote. So as some of you know, on my property in Appalachia, I built a stone circle. And the stones are quite large. They're 2.5 meters or about 8 feet high. And I learned from watching some videos on YouTube that what can occur, the types of rocks that I have on my land, they're full of different kinds of crystals. There's garnets, there's pieces of quartz that you're drawing the energy up and out of the earth. And to what someone alluded to earlier, a question about can our body sort of attract a ley line? I think because we are electricity and water, that perhaps in a way it does it as well. And I think people who, probably everyone on this call, we sort of know where to sit in the woods, whatever that means, and just find where we're supposed to be. But I also think, as Sheila alluded to, we can perhaps create these vortices by putting these structures up. And you don't need a backhoe like I hired. I mean, I had all these big stones laying around, so I hired a guy to dig the holes and put them up. And they come up to here on me, and I'm average height.
Wow.
So 30% of that stone's in the ground. And I just put something down and have the intention. I do think it attracts it. Anyway, thank you so much.
Wow, I'd love to see a photograph of that.
Yeah. Medicine wheels actually will create a vortex as well. So, while I'm thinking about it, Karen, we were talking about what's coming up in October. I want to share screen real quick because I want everybody to see what our next big event is. On Saturday, October the 21st at 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Mountain Time, we are having a conference. You can watch it on any of the CAN platforms, but if you'll go to our website and get signed up, we'll send you the direct link. And look at all these phenomenal speakers that we have. We're going to be talking about everything from the goddesses and animal totems to ascension. We have some very well-known speakers on here. And you guys, we had Anna Marie here last week. We had Valerie. We've had Lisa. So you guys kind of got a touch and a taste of, their magnificence. So can you imagine a whole day with all of these people? So we would really love for you to come out and to watch this. All of these are authors from the Common Sentience book series. And when I first got started, after I wrote my book, I worked with Sacred Stories and Ariel, and she is just phenomenal. And she had this brainchild of bringing all of these types of mystical topics to mainstream. So she's trying to also do what we're all doing, is normalizing the conversation. And, we had when Valerie was on here, with her book Witch that just came out, and each one of these individuals, similar to what I did with the walk-in book, is I tell my story in the front, and then I have all of these other stories, and then I end it at the very end. And the same thing, this format has been followed. So each one of these people are telling a story, and then they have other individuals who have had all of these mystical experiences within ascension, the God talk, shamanism, angels. But, check us out. Go to our website, Conscious Awakening Network, and sign up, and we will send you the link to join us that day. So,
yeah, you've got some amazing people there. Have you ever had Susan Giesman in?
No, but I heard she's coming to Colorado.
But people have been telling me for years to get her on the show, and I just haven't yet. I don't know why.
Here, she's phenomenal.
Yeah, everyone's like, get her on the show, get her on the show. But she's one of those people that's been on so many shows.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think, oh, haven't you heard? Like, everyone's heard her. But a bit with Neil Donald Walsh, but and William Henry, amazing. Oh, I've got 3 minutes.
Amazing speakers.
Amazing speakers. Sheila, this has been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. I think that we'd have to rewatch it. There was so much information downloaded. I think that rewatching this a few times, just to really get it. I think we need to rewatch this a few times. And
it'll help wake people's memories up.
Yeah, totally.
You'll listen to it again and say, oh, wait a minute. I had a thought similar to that. I wonder if, and you'll start connecting your own dots.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what a blessing to have you as the guest speaker on Cosmic Conversation.
How fun. I've never done it before.
I know. You've got so much to say. Thank you so much. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you, everybody, for being here and watching us, being in our audience. We don't have Susie here with us tonight. She was not able to get her technology to work, so let's send some little technology angels out her way to assist her, but she did want to let everybody know that she loves everyone and she's thinking of us, and she's playing music in her heart. So, we can appreciate that. But I want to do, again, one more time, thank everyone. Karen, thank you for agreeing to be my co-host this month. You're bringing some phenomenal speakers. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's fun. And I've got some of my tribe online on Zoom today from the Inner Sanctum. Well, my tribe, your tribe, it's all one big happy family, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it was great to see some familiar faces, and they're messaging me because I've got a messenger online, group chat, and they're like, "This is phenomenal! This is amazing! This is amazing!" They're all in my group chat messaging.
Yay!
Thanks.
Well, I hope that this does help to spark your own remembrance, and don't take my word for it. Ask your guides. This is the way my guides brought it to me.
Cindy's asking that question again. Where can I find the link to re-listen? It's on the Conscious Awakening Network YouTube. It's also on Conscious Awakening on Facebook. It'll also be on Conscious Awakening website. It'll be there as well. I've shared it on my personal page and my group. What's the name of my group? Oh God, I can't even remember the name of my group. I've shared it on the Inner Sanctum. I've shared it everywhere. But I think that you shared it on your personal Facebook page. Anyway, it's everywhere. You can find it everywhere.
Yeah. So thank you, guys. I appreciate you listening to me, for being here, for all your support, all your love, all your wonderful notes that you send. I really, really appreciate it. So thank you guys for being here. And until we are back together again next week, namaste. Much love, everybody. And we'll see you on Thursday. We have Nadi Hana coming, and she's going to be talking with us about sacred geometry and maybe some crop circles. So you don't want to miss that. So we will see you on Thursday. Thanks. All righty. Good night, everybody. Bye. Thanks, Karen.